I was the Easter bunny at a grocery store one year. I'm a sweaty guy, and that suit certainly did not help the situation. I sweated through the costume, and the parents that took pictures with me commented on it several times. Also, those gloves do not have any grip. Almost dropped a baby. I worked at Chuck E. Cheese for 5 years in high school, college, and then later became my college's mascot. I think the worst is that because of my height, most people figured out I'm a girl and I have been grabbed a few times. A lot of older kids at Chuck E. Cheese do go out of their way to harass, hit you though. And we didn't always have handler. Once we were finished in the suit, we were allowed to grab a manager and point out who harassed us. Most guests got one warning and then were asked to leave. One time, one of my coworkers was a tall guy and had a very deep voice. He was in a metal band and could do that scream singing thing and loved to sneak up behind us and use it to scare us. When he was in the suit, he would sneak up behind the really bratty kids and tell them in the screamo voice that he was not to be harmed. Usually scared them enough that they would avoid Chuck the rest of their visit. Was in a parade and it was super hot. Got a nosebleed during the parade, and spent the entire parade trying to flag down the first A team. Is here 40 minutes later and I'm still dripping moderate amounts of blood as the parade comes to an end. I had to pose with a few children and then I got to go back inside our building and take off the mask, where I promptly removed the head to reveal that my shirt and face were soaked in blood. Reminded me of a horror movie or something. I had to put on the cow suit at Chick-fil-A on occasion. I'm 6'2", so I made every single kid cry whenever I came out in costume for their birthday party. Asterisk every time. Asterisk. I didn't have a job, but I do charity work with a Ghostbusters cosplay group. Most of the time the interactions are great, but around the time of the 2016 movie and all the heat it was taking, we had some interesting encounters. The most memorable was a guy who came up to me at a convention and asked me how pissed off we were that Hillary Clinton was forcing Hollywood to make an all-girls Ghostbusters as part of the hidden feminist agenda. My favorite interaction was walking through a mall with the group. An older woman asks, "Who are they supposed to be?" And her teenage daughter rolls her eyes and says, "God, Mom, did you sleep through the 80s?" Quote. I was a bee in one of the stage shows at this amusement park. The bee always crash-landed every time he entered the scene and it was my first performance. I come charging onto the stage trying to aim for this tall blade of grass that was made out of 3/4 plywood. Found the grass fine, but I couldn't see the smaller blade of grass that was just under knee-high. My shin went right into the tip of that one and cut the hell out of me. I proceeded to hand jive out the scene as this unsettling crimson spot got bigger and bigger on the yellow tights I was wearing. 13 years later I still have the scar. When I was 16, I was a character performer at Disney World in Orlando. Tigger was in my height range and is a fairly common character, so I got to play him a lot. Most of the costumes have some sort of padding to fill out the character. However, Tigger's costume is just a fursuit essentially. The line for his belly is much lower than where MYT actual stomach is. Often, kids wanted to rub Tigger's belly. Only it's not very awkward, especially with the parents yelling in the background, "Go rub his belly," and #X200B. Also, people love to bang on the heads and slap them around, but they don't realize that it is physically attached to my head. So you are essentially slapping me around too. I had to wear the Chick-fil-A cow costume on a 98-degree day in Colorado. Relevant because the sun in Colorado is so intense it's like a heat gun. Within 3 minutes of putting this thing on I was sweating profusely, but the fan in the head was broken, so I had no fresh air to circulate at all. I tried to be a champ about it and started playing with some little toddlers. Then some third or fourth graders showed up and started saying that I wasn't a real cow and they could see my face through the little mesh screen. No shit, kid. Cows don't walk on two legs. One of the fourth graders circles around behind me and body slams me. Then the one in front thinks it's hilarious and tries to kick me in the balls. I tried to walk away with a little dignity, but I was told it 100% looked like I was running from fourth graders, which I kind of was. TBH, I had to wear a cow suit for a Mexican restaurant and a random passerby thought it would be funny to rack me. I was already irritated by the 100-degree weather and unbearable costume that I threw the head off. I was on one of the busiest streets in my town, and tried fighting him. I'm assuming it was quite a sight to see a guy in a cow costume trying to fight a random pedestrian. This one was actually pretty fun. But for my high school soccer team, I got to dress up as a giant eagle once for a big fundraiser event we were running that day. Everyone was out in town advertising and getting people to come and I was the eagle. Well, for some reason people were loving the mascot costume, so I ran into a packed coffee shop and starting flapping my wings and making screeching eagle sounds with all my might. There was a lot of confusion. Still working at my job as a mascot. Was in costume. Saw a dog. Pet it. With permission. Dog started biting my finger thinking it was a toy. Tried pulling away. Dog thought I was playing. I was scared the costume would rip. My escort was trying everything they could to stop the dog. TLDR. Guys make Wonder Woman uncomfortable with lewd comments. Yes. Finally a place where people actually want me to talk about work. Disclaimer. I do superheroes for parties and events. I have had some really strange parties. One really bad one, but it's even worse for my female coworkers. I worked with Wonder Woman at a sports game. Not going to say what kind or where. And there were several men who wanted pictures with Wonder Woman. Sometimes me too, and didn't have kids. This isn't super weird because it's common for parents or grandparents to ask for a picture. Because Timmy loves Spider-Man and he'll think it's so cool I got to meet him. Real wholesome stuff. There were a handful of guys who asked for a picture with Wonder Woman and actually asked me to step out of frame when I tried to pose with them. But there were two guys who took it way too far. One guy asked for a picture with just Wonder Woman and then said, "This is great. I've always wanted to molest Wonder Woman." I watched his hands really closely after that. Luckily he walked away and she shrugged it off. The other guy was even worse. He wanted a picture with Wonder Woman and really wanted her to pretend to punch him in the balls. She was visibly uncomfortable, and tried to pose normally. But he persisted and it was really weird. He apparently told her, "It's always been a dream of mine to be punched in the balls by Wonder Woman." She refused and told him she would pretend to punch him in the stomach instead. He was visibly disappointed. We keep it very PG at the company. And if our boss saw that picture she would understandably not be happy. I can elaborate and tell a lot other stories. But I tried to keep this short as I'm sure this will get buried. Worked for a summer collegiate baseball team in high school. Actual mascot was sick on the day he was supposed to go to an elementary school for some PR. I was asked to fill in as a 6'1" dude. A bunch of kindergarten 5th graders running up to you and hugging you because you're a giant dog. Makes for some uncomfortable moments. And a few painful ones too. I volunteered for the town library in high school. One year, I was asked to wear an otter suit at the Easter Fair to promote the library's new mascot. I agreed, because my family didn't celebrate and I was bored. I was a chubby kid, so the suit was tight, which did nothing for my self-esteem as sure I couldn't see inside the helmet. So combined with my auditory processing issues, I only had vague ideas of what was happening outside. I just waved every now and then and hoped for the best. It was pretty tolerable until the touching started. Every 5 minutes, a parent would come up with a baby and try and get it to pet me. They did this by petting my arms, face and cooing to their babies about how soft I was. The more disinterested the baby was, the harder the parents tried. At one point, 3 different people were rubbing me and squealing gibberish at bored toddlers. There was nothing I could do about it. I just had to stand there and wave. Spent 2 hours in the shower, scrubbing the memories out. Worst fucking job ever. Ever.